Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to be disassembling the Mercruiser engine. It's going to be going into the series truck. And I want to thank you for liking and subscribing and following along and always being positive in everything you guys always do. So, this video is going to be disassembling of the engine. This is my first time working on a Chevy engine or any American engine. I've only worked on foreign engines. So, it's going to be a lot of detail, kind of looking at different pieces and parts inside the engine, and we're going to take apart the whole thing, strip it down to the block itself, and we'll inspect all the bearings, the pistons, the head, and everything. So follow along. I hope you enjoy this. This is a longer video, but this is just going to be the disassembly and looking at things, and then I'm going to order all the parts, and we'll start getting her back together in the next video. So enjoy it. Get some popcorn, your favorite snack, your favorite beverage. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my long video on disassembling a Chevy engine that I am learning as we're going along, and hope you learned something too. Bye-bye. Here's the manifold part number. It's 3767499. GM. There's the numbers there. Loosened up the thermostat housing. Which I don't think this is a Mercruiser thermostat housing. I think this is a Chevy inline 6 one, but I'm not sure. Definitely the chrome is not right. This is the valve train here with these rocker arms that are just kind of pivot. They almost look like stamped steel the way they are. So I think these are the same as like the inline 6s, the Chevy inline 6s. I think these are all the same, and also maybe even the V8s. I think they share a lot of common parts on these engines. So I'm going to start taking these off next. So I'm going to do the same thing like I did with the series engine whenever I did the decoking on it. I got 1, 2, 3, and 4 rocker arms with the exhaust intake and everything like that. So I'm going to put those on this board as I take them off. So this is the front of the engine. This is the rear of the engine. This would be number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So then we're just going to take them off just like that and put them on our board. So I put them in the same direction. Also, these two are the intake, and these two are the intake. No, these two are the intake here for the engines. Then these ones here and the end one are the exhaust. So the intake manifold goes right here and here. These are intake. They come into the same hole for the intake, and the exhaust comes out in the center in the same one, and the end ones are the exhaust ones. So that's pretty interesting. It's almost like they're lock nut down, the nuts on there. All right, let's take a look at the first one here. Okay, so we got it looks like a lock nut on top, a swivel ball into the bottom so it pivots the arm, And I think this is pretty neat. You can see that little, little nub there, little hole right there. That when the oil gets pumped up through the push rod, it squirts oil out of there to lubricate the pivot down here. I thought that was pretty cool to see. Some neat things that you find on different engines, you know. Pretty cool. Now that was the exhaust side and this was the intake, and the rocker arms are basically exactly the same. It's pretty neat. Okay, so I'm gonna take all the rest of these off and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm taking the push rods out. Got a real fancy pizza box here. But I got front here and then I got 1, 2, 3, 4 showing with the push rod, so I put them in the same place. But I thought you'd want to see this. They're just simple rods with a hole in the middle of it. No more, no less. Not even like a special machining or anything. It's pretty neat looking. But put these in the box, so I put them in the same place, and we'll give them a good cleaning as well. Before I start getting too far in to taking the head out, I thought this was neat to see. They put like actual cast a groove around the edge for the valve cover gasket going around. I thought that was pretty neat. And look at it, then there's the little slots for the push rods. Just real tiny, they're not very big to put it through. So as your oil comes up through the push rods and they're sprayed through here, it doesn't leak out from around when it comes down to go back down into these drain holes that look like these are, whoops, these are the drain holes that go back to the block for oil. So as it comes out and it's spraying around, it kind of lays all over and it goes into these crevices here and runs down into these holes. I thought that was that's pretty ingenious, I think. It's pretty neat. A little extra thought into that. So next thing is, let's see, I already got the spark plugs off. The head looks like it's just attached on there. Maybe I'll take this cover plate off next. Okay, so we got 1/2 inch nuts here. You take this side cover off, and this is where you're going to access your the push rods go down through here, go to the lifters down in here. So this will give us a little bit more idea of what's going on in the engine. I'm really interested to get the head off because I want to see what's going on inside with the pistons. Yeah, so I thought. I think I'm gonna have to take the distributor off. Looks like it's just a bolt underneath. Oh, and I did set the engine to top dead center over here. I'm gonna have to get close to top dead center of number 1. We'll have to take a closer look at that. I'm going to mark this. So I marked it just to see where, so I put this back in the same place later on, which we'll probably have to retime it anyways, but still, just so we have an idea, I'll put it back on. There's a little holder that holds the distributor in. It should just kind of wiggle out. There you go. Here's the distributor. You see the paint mark there? Okay, take the cover off. It's pretty cool. It says Mercruiser Marine. I think it's actually aluminum. There's a little bit of rust right here. Still might not be bad. It doesn't look too bad right there so far. It's well oiled all along, except for this rusty one. So maybe that's some positive news there. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is take these head bolts out. Alright, you got a 3/4 inch wrench. Holy moly. Oh, cow. Yeah, they're all broke loose now. Yeah, so I took all the bolts out, heads out of the bolts, and I just propped it up. Not too bad. Doesn't look too bad. Just basically dirt and carbon built up on it. Let's take a closer look. It actually has a copper head gasket on there. And just kind of like build up carbon. Doesn't look like rust or anything like that, which very happens with boat motors. They get filled with water. The passages start leaking and they start filling with water. But this one doesn't have anything like that. So that's pretty good. It is kind of... I'm thinking that's more carbon. These are actually can be cleaned up, I think. They should be okay. The walls don't look... They look... let me get a light. Hold on. Yeah, they don't have any crosshatch on them anymore. So this engine definitely got some miles on it. I guess that could be a little bit of rust. You could say that's rust or there, but it looks more like corrosion or just nasty carbon just by running too rich or something like that maybe. I'm not sure. But they don't look bad, so I think they should be good. And let's look at the head. Well, the head looks kind of rusty, I guess. Maybe it's just from sitting so long. I don't know. I'm going to stay positive on it so far. But yeah, I think if I give that a good cleaning, I might get all that scoring off of there. So yeah, that's definitely rust right here. Some rust on there. But we'll give it a clean up and see how it goes with the head. But it's way better than way better than I thought. So let's take a look at the head gasket. Wow, that's pretty thin. That's a thin piece of copper. But the nice thing is you can still get all the engine kits and everything for these. Ooh-wee. That's even thinner than a Land Rover one. That's pretty thin. But I had a hard time getting the head studs out, the head bolts. But it looks like you're supposed to put sealant around there because it's right where, here's the cooling hole right here. You could see that one goes straight through. So that must be why. That must be the goop that they put on the ends, so water doesn't come up through. Yeah, like right here too. And there's a hole here. These are your, that's where your push rod comes through here. There's a cooling hole. Huh, pretty interesting, isn't it? Oh, and it's neat how all different engines are the same, but they're all a little bit different on the way they work, but they all do the same thing. So it's pretty cool. After removing the head bolts and cleaning them, I saw that one head bolt was stripped, but the block was good. So that's a good relief. Then I don't have any video of it, but when I pulled the pistons out, they were pretty crusty all around on the rings and the sides, but they seemed to look okay though. Here's a picture of the cam and the crank, and the left is the cam with the big gear, and then to the right is the crank with the smaller gear. And this is how they set the timing and everything on the engine instead of using a chain. So the next part I took off was the oil pump and the oil screen pickup. So it's held in with 2 bolts, and then the pickup is actually pressed into it, and it's held into place with one of the bearing caps. Super smooth. Hopefully the bearings will be pretty nice inside of there. All the ones here look pretty good. I got the crank out of the engine, and it's actually, they look pretty good. The journals, this is the main journals here. You can see there's like a little rust line into the middle of it. But it's super smooth though. It's just kind of like a stain on there. And as I run a finger across, there's no lip past where the bearing rides, and this like kind of a dirt line. You can kind of see it right here. So it's actually pretty smooth. So that's a good thing. Because even like here, there's no edge or anything. It's smooth the whole way across. You can see there. So this looks good. And the bearings, here I got the bearings out here too. And they didn't look too scored, but they're definitely used though. So they weren't too bad. Kind of see it there. Then the thrust bearing, the main bearing, you can see there's some marks on it, but it's still not too bad. It was running pretty good, so there's nothing crazy going on with the crank. So what I'm going to do, and then the connecting rods, they actually look pretty good too. Like there's not even any scoring on that either, so they look pretty good too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to Napa Auto Parts here in America. They have a polishing service, so they'll actually polish it for you for a real reasonable price. But I'm just going to, no grinding, no nothing like that. I'm just going to get them polished up. And I've done this before in other engines, and it turned out really nice and really smooth or whatever. Like, we'll see when it comes back. I bet you all these marks will be gone, and it'll be completely cleaned up. So I'm going to take the crank over to get cleaned up. So as we were going, I took out the cam. This is it doesn't have a part number on, at least I couldn't find a part number on it. Probably is somewhere. But this is the cam that's for a marine application or whatever, like for not for the street. It's made for, you know, boats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off. I'm going to reuse this onto the new cam. So that'll be the cam, and then let's see, cam. We got the pistons here. They cleaned up. I gave them a cleaning, and they don't look all that great on film, but they're actually all clean. There's no carbon left on there, just kind of like the stain. But they're actually in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of scoring like this around the side, but that's nothing. I've used pistons that look worse than that in other engines. But yeah, it looks pretty good all around. And the skirts look good. They look good enough. Then not the bearings, the rings. I'm really surprised how nice. I didn't really clean them, and they're super smooth in those grooves. So they're not, so they never really got much gook inside of those. And the oil ring as well. That spins around pretty good. So those ones, they're good to go. These ones will be good. And then the caps, all the bearing caps, they all look pretty good too. There's not much going on with them or whatever, but you saw in the video that the crank, it spun really smooth inside the engine itself. There was no play in it. There was nothing. So that's why I'm just going to do a polish on that, and then just use the same bearing caps, not getting it aligned board or anything like that. And the plan is, also I cleaned up all the rockers. The rockers looked all right. They had a little bit of wear on them. Let's see them here. You see it's got a little bit of wear on there, but that's okay. It's not bad. It's just a little bit of a clean spot on them, but they turned out pretty nice. They should be okay. So the next thing is I'm going to take apart the head. We'll take a look at that and clean that all up next. So another note is that we'll be doing new piston rings. I'll be honing the block coming up in the video. I'll be honing that and cleaning it. And then just putting new bearings in, everything. I'm going to do new cam bearings, new crank bearings, new connecting rod bearings. Just kind of like order a whole new kit. They actually sell them for the 120s all in a kit. So the next step, I'm going to be taking apart the head. So here's the head. Before I start tearing it all apart, I wanted to give you a little look here. But you can see there's a bunch of just rust. Since this is cast iron, I think there's just, from it sitting for so long, it's got a lot of rust on the inside here. But all this, and there's also rust here, you could see, from where the cylinder head gasket, it's got these little holes here for cooling. And it just kind of gooked up inside here too or whatever. So just going to give this a cleaning, but I just wanted to show, like, there's some rust on the inside here, but I think if I use just a little wire brush, I'm going to probably use a brass one just to kind of clean this up before I pull the valves out and give it all a good cleaning before I use the tool, the same tool that I used before on the Land Rover head. It'll work on this one as well. So I'm going to go with that route and take all the valves out and take a look at the inside the head. All the valve guides and everything. So, let's see here again. Just more rust. Just similar to my old Land Rover engine. So, okay. So I'm going to clean this up and I'll be back. In case if somebody wants to see how they take a valve out. Got this tool I got off a friend of mine years ago. He gave it to me for free. But it's a Chevy one. And it came with a fork on the end that goes on the spring. I'm going to show you. And you have the pin here that's adjustable. So you could do whatever the width of your head is. You can fit on there. So this is your valve side. And this is your spring side. You see how it's a fork? Okay. Take it. You put this into the center of your valve. You put this on top of your spring. This particular engine, I clicked it twice and now it's pinched in there. Let me give you a little closer look. See here, it's pushed in the center. This pin here is in the center of the valve, just kind of closely into the center. This side's now pushing. It has a little bit of pressure on the spring right now. And the other ones that I took out already, the keepers, which are right here, were kind of stuck on the end of it. So what I did is I put a little pressure on it, did 2 clicks on there, and I just kind of tapped it. There you go. See, it moved back. It relieved the pressure because when you click that handle and push it in, it's supposed to take the spring in so then you can get those little keepers out. So, okay, let's go back. There. Okay, so now I take this, pull the handle, and it compresses the spring enough and holds it there. And I can take out the 2 little keepers that hold the spring in, right there. Then what you do is you pull the handle, and you pull this lever up, and you release the spring pressure. Then you take the tool off. Then you can take your springs off. And there's your cap. And these are actually double springs. I see this, there's another spring inside. So put that right here. Then your valve here has a little O-ring on it. See a little O-ring, little valve seal. Pop the valve seal off. Then you can also, actually before you take the valve out, you can kind of wiggle it and see how much play are in here. Play are in the head, which isn't too bad. But these seats are terrible on these valves. We'll take a closer look after I get them all out and I clean them up a little bit. But yeah, they look absolutely terrible. But there you go. So now you got your valve out, and now I'm going to continue doing it. So the head now has all the valves taken out of it. And I numbered them 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. The exhaust and intake. So the valves, this engine must have been sitting for a very long time, because you could see the rust on the valve seats going across. Now these ones here I just cleaned up with a little bit of gasoline. I kind of cleaned it up and it seemed to be, they may clean up okay for me to lap them. But some of them, I'll show you the valves themselves here. You can see they look pretty crusty and dirty. I think the ones that were sitting out because it sat for so long, I think the valves that were sitting open, they rusted a lot worse than the valves that were closed. So, you know, like this one, like the valve might have been closed on this one because of there's some shiny spots on it. And this one here, these are the ones that look like a complete mess. So I'm going to clean all these up a little closer and take a closer look at them, and also the seats themselves, and see if we can lap them and clean them up and see if they'll be okay. One other thing I thought was very interesting, since this is a GM or a Chevrolet head or engine, it's based off of that, the Mercruiser engine. Look, there's no valve guides. It's just the block itself here. It rides on there, which is crazy because this is the first engine I've ever seen that doesn't have valve guides of some kind, which I found that to be very surprising. You can see down in there. Pretty crazy. So I'm going to clean up the valves. We'll take another look, and I'm going to clean up all these seats and try to look and see. Maybe we can save this without actually having to take it to the machine shop or anything and get those valves redone. So the head itself is actually pretty flat. whenever I cleaned up all the surfaces, and you can kind of see that's just kind of a stain on there. It's not necessarily something on the surface. Like you can run your finger across it and it's completely smooth. Let me get machinist straight edge here. Could be flat enough. I don't know, I have to take a closer look at it whenever I'm not holding the phone in my hand, but it may be close enough for an engine, for this engine, this our little mighty little powerful little engine here. So I'm gonna go clean things up and I'll be back. The valve seats are now cleaned up a little bit. I didn't lap them yet, but I wanted to show you before I lap them, just to see what they'll end up looking like by the end. You can see they kind of, when I cleaned them up a little bit with a little wire with a brass brush, it kind of cleaned off the big chunks off of it. The exhaust ones really don't look too bad, but the intake ones look kind of crusty and rusty. So any professional engine builders, just turn away for the next few minutes in the video and you'll probably be a lot better. So, okay, so the valve, this valve that goes in here, you can see here, it cleaned up, but also I wire wheeled all the valves. So you can see there's some pits in the valve. We'll see if those clean her up at all or anything, and see how the seat ends up going together. But this one here, this one was pretty bad. You can see all on the sealing surface, there's ripples and bumps and stuff. So we'll see how those clean up or whatever. So we'll take another look. I'm going to start, I got the old handy valve grinding tool with the compound. So going to give it a try. I'll show you how to do one just in case you've never seen my other videos. So I'll show you how to do one and we'll go from there. All right, so we're going to lap the valves. So this is our first one. You can see how it's kind of shiny and everything, and this is kind of dull in here. So what you do, well, at least what I like to do, is I put a little bit of oil on here, a little bit on the valve and then into the guide, just so when you're spinning it, it doesn't get, kind of lubricates the hole and lubricates the valve so it doesn't scratch it up too bad. So what you do is you open up your valve grinding compound that you can buy at any store. Any auto parts store has this. You just put a little bit on there. That's actually maybe way too much, but you just spread it around on the valve seat area. And this is going to be what's going to grind it down and make them sit flush and level or whatever, kind of seal tighter. So you put that in. And put a little dab of oil up here. That's what I like to do. So hopefully it'll help the spinny thing stay on there a little better. So it's a little suction cup. Down there, kind of give it a little bit of pressure. Let me try the other side. Maybe that'll work a little better. Also, when you push down on this, what I like to do is, you can see my hand down here, I lift up the valve and I push down on it so it suction cups on it, and then I put it down in there so it doesn't push real hard onto the seat. There you go. And then you can hear it gets a little bit quieter. Doesn't quite grind as much. So then next thing I do, I have some lacquer thinner here. I'll take and I'll clean the valve off. Clean the compound off. And see if it got any better. There, that did a little bit. You can see now it changed a little bit. Just by a little bit by pushing on it. Give it just a little bit of pressure. You don't have to give it a whole lot of pressure. And then I'll clean this off as well. I'll take another look at it. Now you seen earlier the valve seats, how rusty and nasty they were. Now here's after just an evening of honing with, you know, the honing compound and everything. So what I ended up doing was the intake valves, the smaller one, I did them 3 times. I honed them, went around there, cleaned them off, did a fresh squeeze of grinding compound 3 times in a row on the intakes. And on the exhaust ports, I just did it twice. And the exhaust port ones turned out really nice right away, right off the bat. I just did it twice and they turned out really nice and clean looking. But the intake ones, I had to do it twice because the first time just kind of cleaned them a little bit, and the second time gave them better, and the third one was even better. So I'm pretty happy. You see what the difference is, how they cleaned up. Like, they cleaned up really nice and compared to what they were before. And then we'll look at the valves as well. Like, this was the real nasty valve here. You can see how it kind of polishes it down. It's smooth, but there's like one little bump. I don't know if you could see it. Right here is the only little bump I found in the valves, and all the valves, and all of them. Only one little bump. So, and that would not come out. So that's okay. That'll be fine. It'll seal tight all the way around that valve, except for that one little bump on there. But the rest of them, they cleaned up like really nice. You can see there now. You don't want any chrome or shiny pieces on your valves. You want them to be a dull color. So then when they seal down, they seal with a dull surface onto each other and keeps it nice and tight. So if they're shiny, if your valves are shiny, then you definitely need to lap your valves. But like this one was pretty bad too. And you could see it turned out pretty nice. I'm really surprised how much just an evening of honing and everything and cleaning, and how much better the seats can look just for one evening. So I'm going to consider the head done. Besides, I have the engine kit coming, and it has seals on the top of here to put onto here. Other than that, I cleaned up all the springs, cleaned up the valves as you've seen, and the keepers are all clean. Then the head and the valves will get a good clean to get any of the dust off from the honing compound or anything. I'll do a complete rinse out and do this. I didn't do a complete one, just kind of a cleanup on it. So that'll be it for... Well, I hope you lasted to the end of the video, and I hope you learned something and maybe seen something or whatever, but I'd like to hear your comments down below. But so far, I'm just going to order a new engine kit and get a bunch of different parts that are going to go inside the engine that I'll show in the next video. And a lot of the pieces and parts, like the pistons, like I got new pistons, it all came in the kit. So the next video, we'll talk about more of the actual kit. I should have took pictures of all the pieces and parts, but it was a very comprehensive kit. So thank you very much. Like, subscribe, and follow along, and stay awesome, because you know what? You are awesome. Alrighty. Bye-bye.